Graham, you guys got any questions now? Okay. All right. Moving on to human resources update.
Okay, Chairman, I'd like to ask Dr. Rates to come forward and introduce the next two presentations. She's overseeing both of those, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
All right, good evening, Chair Alexander and members of the board. If you have been around Manassas Park for the last 24 years, anytime in the last 24 years, you probably know who Chris Koenig is. But I'm really excited tonight to introduce him as our Director of Human Resources. He's held many roles in the division that have given him a lot of background knowledge that he's using in his current role in human resources. What I hope tonight you'll see is some of the work that we've done as a new HR team coming together. We're also joined tonight by Kip Tuttle, our Coordinator of Benefits, who's only been with us a short time but is already in there doing the work. So I hope that you'll see some of the work that we've done and some of the work that we have planned to do, because I would say that really overall what we're looking at is that critical role that human resources plays in the recruitment, the hiring, and the retention of the best staff possible that we can put in front of our students. So I'm happy to introduce tonight Mr. Koenig.
Good evening, Chair Alexander and members of the school board. Let me get started with the presentation.
Chris, your mic's not on.
Oh, I think it's too high.
Testing. Better?
See if Matt gives us a thumbs up.
Okay. I'm pleased to be here this evening to provide an update on our staffing, reviewing where we were in FY25 and where we stand now as we begin the FY26 school year. The data I'm presenting tonight represents our new baseline. As you may recall, 85% of our human resources team, including myself, are new to the HR department or are new to Manassas Park City Schools, or both. Combined with the loss of historical data previously stored on network drives, this made it difficult to conduct an accurate year-over-year comparison based on previous data. Moving forward, this baseline, along with the anecdotal information we've gathered, will serve as the foundation for tracking and analyzing staffing trends in the years ahead. As with everything we do, the updates I provide tonight will be cross over all three of the pillars of the Manassas Park City Schools strategic plan. Okay. Got it. Last year, I began planning for recruiting and hiring in mid-October, shortly after I also stepped into the role of benefits administrator for Manassas Park City Schools when we had staffing changes. From the start, I had two clear goals. One, target the fairs with the greatest number of teacher candidates and the highest needed academic areas. And two, maximizing the impact of our recruiting budget. No, thank you. To make data-driven decisions, we turned to the College Navigator website, a resource curated by the National Center for Educational Statistics and the Institute of Education Sciences. This tool allowed us to dig deeply into student demographics and analyze the sizes and graduation rates of various education majors across U.S. colleges and universities. For example, if we're looking for an East Coast institution with 200 or more elementary education majors, College Navigator helps us quickly identify the schools where our recruiting efforts will have the strongest impact. In addition, we carefully consider the financial side of recruiting. Education fairs all come with a cost. Registration fees, travel, lodging, and more. So being intentional about which events we attend ensures that we're making the best use of our resources. Finally, we also collaborate with our neighboring school divisions to see which fairs they are attending. This helps us benchmark our efforts and ensure that we're competing effectively in the same talent pools. During the 24-25 school year, MPCS participated in 13 in-person recruitment fairs and 3 virtual fairs. By comparison, one of our neighboring divisions attended 25 job fairs in one single month. As I shared earlier, our focus is not on volume, but on strategically maximizing the impact of our recruiting budget. From our efforts, we were successful in recruiting candidates from 5 of the in-person job fairs that we attended, along with 1 from our virtual job fairs. Whenever possible, I review resumes and candidate profiles in advance of each fair and personally reach out to schedule time at each fair to meet with strong prospects. In addition, we created and shared targeted social media posts to promote our presence, such as the example shown here from one of the universities we attended the career fair for. In addition to attending college and university career fairs, MPCS also hosted our own Saturday recruitment event designed to attract teachers, instructional assistants, school nutrition team members, and transportation staff. Building on that success, we plan to host additional weekend events this year to reach even more potential candidates. Last February, we also launched our new modern applicant tracking system called Red Rover to broaden our reach and attract a larger pool of candidates. Through another new partnership that we started last year with LinkedIn, every position that we post in Red Rover is automatically shared on LinkedIn, giving us immediate exposure to a wider audience. This partnership has also allowed us to spotlight high-need positions, increasing visibility and applicant traffic. We're also expanding our pipeline of future teachers by welcoming more college students into our schools for field experience and internships. Last year, MPCS hosted 24 college students throughout the year. And already this year, we have 16 scheduled to begin at Cougar Elementary and Manassas Park Elementary in the next 2 weeks. And this year, and the year has only just begun. This hands-on experience is one of the best ways to attract future staff by giving them an opportunity to build connections with our students and teachers early on. For the past several years, MPCS has also offered hiring incentives to licensed candidates to make our division even more competitive and attractive. For some, these incentives have been the deciding factor in choosing to join MPCS. This year, we are awarding 19 hiring incentives to new staff members for this year. So, where did our recruitment efforts bring us for the new school year? As of early September, MPCS has hired 79 new staff members. At this point, the majority of our full-time positions are filled. As is our standard practice, we are reviewing student enrollment data to ensure that we're staffed at sufficient levels and we're aligned with enrollment needs across the division. Throughout the spring, teams across MPCS collaborated to design a robust onboarding experience for new staff. We've had a new teacher orientation for many years, but we took the one we had and we energized it to include new information, new supports, and included more people in the process to ensure that we had a well-rounded program. In early August, this work culminated in an engaging 4-day new teacher orientation. This event plays a vital role in preparing our new staff to thrive in their roles and to feel connected to the MPCS community from day one. While we were pleased to welcome 79 new staff members this year, we also said farewell to 79 colleagues who left MPCS through retirement, resignation, or non-renewal. This is nearly identical to last year's total when 80 staff members exited during the 23-24 school year. As a result, our staff retention rate for the 24-25 school year stands at 84.6%. Anecdotally, that is very similar to previous years. While we don't have the hard data to support that claim, having been working with recruiting for many years, this is about our typical level. So looking at staff exiting, of the 64 staff members who resigned, an item to note is the 18 members of our staff that left MPCS to work in another local school division. This is an area we plan to examine more closely as we continue to brainstorm strategies to reduce this number. Beginning next year, we'll also begin reporting staff exit data differently using the Virginia Department of Education official exit codes, which outline 18 different reasons why a staff member may leave. This will allow us to track and analyze exit data with greater accuracy and consistency. Another really important area that we need to focus more on is staff engagement. We've done a lot with staff engagement already. We have a lot of programs listed on this page that we should be very proud of. But engaged employees are more likely to remain with the division, helping reduce turnover costs and preserve valuable instructional knowledge. In today's competitive hiring market, A strong reputation for staff engagement also makes our division more appealing to prospective candidates. Our efforts will focus on strategies such as expanding professional learning opportunities, enhancing recognition and appreciation programs, strengthening mentorship and leadership development, and creating more effective channels for staff voice and feedback. By prioritizing engagement, we're not only supporting the retention of our current team, but also building a stronger, more resilient workforce here for Manassas Park City Schools. And that is the end of our staff data presentation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Koenig. Do you have any questions from the board?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you to the whole Human Resources Department. I know a couple years ago we were talking about this data that we were wanting, but now I guess with the Red Rover system, it's actually happening. So thank you all for that. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Our team's been doing a great job.
No, I was excited to see Indiana University of Pennsylvania Teacher Fair on here. Maybe we'll get a hire in the future.
We have in the past, so.
All right, well, we'll keep up the good work there. We have one, yes.
Oh, we have one at the high school also right now.
Awesome.
Oh, yes, yes. So,
We'll continue to push that.
for
Yeah.
sure.
No question on the. Appreciate the kind of the exit information. That's super helpful to understand, and understand you're going to be kind of getting an additional level of granularity and feedback in
Yes.
that. Do you have anything now on kind of where those folks who are moving to other divisions are kind of situated in the experience level to kind of understand, where are we differentiating ourselves and benefits or kind of comparing in benefits if those folks are kind of making benefits-based decision, salary-based decision, rather than, I could go here or I could go down the street?
That is an excellent question. While I don't have the hard data in front of me for that, I would say the majority would be around the year 3 to year 6 range, maybe even pushing into 7 and 8. But that's essentially the range that we need to work on our engagement more with. Again, more anecdotal information based on talking with staff that were leaving. Many of them did leave due to salaries in those ranges because they were going to local schools. So that was one of the deciding factors for many. While we are very competitive and we are doing things like those signing bonuses and things like that, we need to go to that next step on how do we retain.
All right, helpful, appreciate it.
Okay. Couple questions. So, related to the fairs that we go on, and I know some of these questions, feel free to be like, I know
Yeah.
we've lost historical data,
Yeah.
so in the future, so feel free to just volley it back. But do we look at success rates from previous years to like, okay, this is a dry well, we're gonna stop going to Ohio and spending that money? I assume so, but.
We do. We have good data from last year because I also helped pretty extensively with the recruitment fairs last year, as well as the previous year before that. We have extensively edited that list that we go to, and like I said, we really want to make sure that there are candidates at these fairs when we're going to them. So one of the first things I look at is when we're choosing where to go is how many majors in those different fields that we're looking for. If we're looking for school counselors, are there any school counselor candidates even at that job fair? So those are the types of questions that we do research. We work with the institutions that we visit prior to actually signing for one of these fairs to make sure that the candidates that we're looking for are actually at them. I would say we were fairly successful with size of the recruitment fairs this year, except for maybe 1 or 2. One example would be Old Dominion University. Really expected that to be a great fair to attend. We hadn't attended it in a couple of years. It had been one that had dropped off, but I had heard really good things about it, talking to some of our colleagues. There were about 15 candidates walking around the entire time. Now, luckily, that was a very, very low-cost fair it was no overnight travel or anything like that. So the loss on the actual capital isn't huge there because it was just my time for that day. But those are the things that we look to avoid when we are going to these types of fairs. So we try to do as much research as possible up front to ensure that those candidates are actually there.
Awesome. So next question. These two kind of go together, but what criteria do we use for selecting career fairs to go to? And what I'm leading into was, I know one of the big pushes was to increase the diversity in our hiring. So I was just kind of curious if you could explain that a little bit.
Sure. I think, like I said, we use that College Navigator website very heavily, and it does give us very good demographic information about the students that are in those schools. So not only does it tell us the number of students that are in each of the different majors, it does give us great demographic information. We have looked for diverse candidates in all the different schools we go to, and for the most part, with the exception of a few, the schools that we did choose to attend last year did have diverse student bodies. So that was an important consideration, just because we want a well-rounded school division that represents the students within our school community here. So that is something that is taken into account as when we're looking at which fairs are we going to go to.
Awesome. All right, just a couple more.
Sure.
I remember several years ago, in the buildings, staff would always say, you know, we need our principals here, not out recruiting. Are we able to kind of maintain that now with having the recruiting team established so that the admins can be there in the buildings with the team?
We're not quite there yet, but we're closer. So like I said, we had the 13 in-person fairs this past year. Half of those I attended, sometimes by myself, sometimes with another staff member. But we do try to keep principals in the buildings as much as possible. One of the things when it comes to hiring is our principals are the ones that are looking to do the hiring for their building to ensure they have a good fit for the staff in their schools. So we have to have that delicate balance.
Right.
So looking at, for example, George Mason, which is a nice local career fair, that was staffed by all school principals last year, school principals, assistant principals. It's close, it's easy to get back to the building, to our building. So that was a strategic reason for placing the principals at that job fair specifically. But one like Texas, where all of Northern Virginia visits the different Texas job fairs due to the number of students that they have, that would not be one that I would have a principal go out to because it is far time-wise and whatnot.
It's my understanding also that sometimes some of our competition, basically, they'll hire on the spot. So
They
we
do.
have to have our interviewers there specifically to strike so that we can get these kids before another
Correct.
group scoops them up.
And essentially what we do to sort of counter that to an extent is as soon as I'm done speaking with that candidate, I take a picture of their resume and send it directly to the principals so that they have that candidate's information right then and there as quick as possible. In many instances, the candidate was receiving a phone call within minutes of leaving our booth by one of our principals to try to get them in. So that has been a successful way to capture that with not having our principals there. We also offer to set up Zoom interviews with the candidates, with our principals right away too. So I think you'd be a great fit for Manassas Park Elementary School. What's your schedule look like? Do you have any time to speak with one of our principals? That's essentially what we would use to counter that too.
Awesome. The last question I have, this is similar to what Mr. Graham was referencing, was for future years, is it possible when we're seeing that number of resignations to see the breakdown by type of staff? Is it a teacher? Is it support staff? Is it
Yeah.
bus drivers? Is it from just that kind of?
Yes, that is information I could provide.
Awesome. Thank you. That's
you.
a lot. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Okay, thank you.
And congratulations on the promotion.
All right, good evening again, Chair Alexander and members of the board. So we are going to totally shift gears now, but I'm going to introduce another great, one of the great members of my staff, Dr. Kristen Marbury, and she's going to come up to talk to you a little bit about the code of conduct. So I know in the past we've talked a little bit about some of the discipline and behavior and things in the schools and how that works. So what I've asked for her to do tonight is really provide you guys first with an overview of our code of conduct. It is somewhat typical to talk about here's the updates like we do in policy updates, but I think it would be nice for us to have just a quick brief overview of our code of conduct, then some of those updates, and I did ask her based on some feedback from one of our meetings we had previously to just give you guys a little quick update on how things are going with our new cell phone policy in the schools. So Dr. Marbury.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Alexander, members of the board, Dr. Saunders. I look forward to speaking with you today about our 2025-2026 Code of Conduct. So as with everything that we do, we're grounded in our strategic plan, and I would say our second pillar and our third pillar really speak to the foundation of our Code of Conduct, us building our community and then also making sure that our spaces are safe for students and for learning. So the purpose and foundation of a code of conduct kind of seems pretty obvious, right? It's kind of the list, the rules, the parameters that guide in conduct, how we provide instruction with our students. But another take on this and another kind of spin on why a school division, and specifically our school division's code of conduct, is so important really starts with what we teach our littlest cougars, which is the 3 R's. We really take seriously the building of respect and responsibility within our students. So just as important instruction is in our beginning vowel sounds and the scientific method, it's just as important that we're teaching our students how to conduct themselves and how to interact with each other. So our code of conduct really governs that and provides that foundation. You'll see mentioned here are the Virginia Department of Education's model guidance. In 2021, they provided a pretty extensive document that guides school divisions on how to approach code of conduct and gives some guidance on what that could look like to be taken from the state level and then modified with the local school division level. So we make sure that our code of conduct each year is in alignment with that guidance document and then also adheres to different required established changes and updates to Virginia codes and Virginia Department of Education regulations. And there's 2 that I'll highlight towards the end of the presentation today that did impact the release of our 25-26 code of conduct. So a lot of people don't realize that our code of conduct is in effect while on school property, so obviously at all of our 4 schools, but it actually extends quite beyond that. So wanted to highlight that for you all today. Our bus stops going to school, from school, on the school bus, whether we're on field trips, if we're any of those learning experiences that are provided for our students, are areas and spaces where our code of conduct is in effect. So just something to remind and good for the public to know. Our code of conduct begins by really opening up with the different roles and responsibilities of our key stakeholders. So the 2 ones that we're very familiar with here in this setting is our school board. Obviously, thank you to you all for making our policies and obviously working with Dr. Saunders to make sure we're creating and holding our school division employees responsible for what's appropriate and what we as a community feel should be emphasized within how we govern ourselves in schools. Our school administrators really shoulder the priority of enforcing the code of conduct, of looking at what is slated, the importance, and we'll talk a little bit about the leveling of different actions and behaviors, but it's their responsibility to take a look at what policies are in place and then to decide and determine what response is appropriate based on whatever behavior has been displayed within the school day. But something that's not always prioritized, but I think is really prioritized within our school division is the parents, guardians, the students, and the school staff. And so there's an old adage that I live by as a teacher, and I definitely live by in this role, and that's really those 3 pillars that make a stool stand steady, right? You need all 3 legs of a stool in order for it to be balanced, and that stool really is balanced based on parents, students, and school staff. And so you'll see here in kind of the descriptions that are provided on this slide, more of those detailed responsibilities within those 3 pillars, because if we're able to be preventative and if we're able to really design that responsibility and that respect within that student from the home side and then also from that school side, we have a much better chance of developing a positive character within that student. And hopefully we wouldn't even need the code of conduct to address any behaviors that are happening within the school setting. So you'll see a lot of those kind of detailed here. It is important to mention that within for our parents and our guardians, school attendance, right, is huge. I know we've been emphasizing a lot on our website with a lot of our information that's gone out to the community, but our students being present, being in good health, being prepared is important to start their day and then also to end their day. for our school staff, managing those student behaviors that take place within the classroom, knowing and honoring student rights, responsibilities, and then also making sure that we're communicating, like we just said, with families and also with students to make sure that that stool is balanced with all three pillars. And then within our students, making sure that they are aware and knowledgeable of our code of conduct and really just our expectations on a regular basis, and then building up their own self-efficacy and their skill set to be able to manage good character and to maintain self-control, even when sometimes things within a school day or any day can get quite challenging. So that kind of breaks down those roles and responsibilities. Within the code of conduct, there are different disciplinary actions, and then there's leveled responses that go along with them. So this slide kind of highlights the different escalation path that is outlined within this code of conduct should there be some sort of an infraction that takes place within the school day. So you'll see, starting with level 1, if there's something that takes place, and I'll go through an example on the next slide, but just to kind of give you an overview. If there's a level 1 behavior, this is something that would take place within the classroom setting and is typically something that is addressed by a staff member or somebody that's working closely with the student, a paraprofessional. Sometimes, students are able to address this within themselves just based on the basic classroom procedures that are available within the classroom setting. But those level 1 responses, should there be something within the code of conduct, can be something as small as a seat change. It could be something like a reflective task. Another example of a level 1 behavior could be a conference with a student. We're able to just talk them through maybe something that they're experiencing. Maybe it's a couple of minutes, and then you're able to get them back on track. So that's just kind of some quick highlights of what a level 1 behavior could look like. And again, it's usually addressed within the classroom setting. A level 2 behavior, then, if we're escalating up to the next level, these are where we're supporting students and we're trying to really emphasize them continuing to be engaged in their regularly scheduled classes. So we're looking at what preventative interventions can we put in place, what things can we, how can we support the student so that if there is a level 2 behavior, we're able to still make sure that they're still accessing their curriculum. So we're looking at different approaches to where they can still stay in class so that they can still be learning and not have an interrupted school day. So an example of a level 2 behavior could be establishing a check-in or check-out with a student. So that could be maybe there's a mentor or a positive staff relationship that student has where we can really leverage that relationship to allow them to process the beginning of the day or the end of the day so that they feel seen, so that they feel heard, and so that they have an outlet as the days go on. And that could be maybe for a couple of weeks or so on and so forth. Level 2 response could also be maybe an alternative like lunch task or activity. Maybe they're doing a reflection or working with their school counselor at lunch to maybe talk through something that took place during class that day. Again, these are happening outside of those instructional times, working with staff to allow them to still access their regularly scheduled classes. A level 3 behavior is where we have some sort of a short-term removal from the school environment. So these are responses where, based on whatever behavior is taking place, whatever infractions taking place, unfortunately, there is going to need to be a minor delay or disturbance from their instructional, what they're receiving instructionally. So this could be at the middle or high school level. This could be an in-school detention. This could be an after-school detention. It might also be some sort of a referral for that. Maybe there's some sort of a conference that needs to take place with the parent and the student. There's several different options, and with each of these levels, there's more detailed descriptions within the code of conduct, just trying to provide you with some examples along the way as I'm describing them. For level 4 behavior, these are cases where the behaviors are pretty severe, where safety is usually of a concern, and when we do unfortunately need to continue to remove that student from the school environment, typically for at least a full school day, if not a couple of school days. So these are situations where a student may unfortunately be within an out-of-school suspension setting or receiving instruction separately or in a different creative manner separate from their peers while we're navigating and creating a support plan for them before we're returning them into that classroom setting. And then lastly, level 5s, which are the most rare behaviors, are situations where it does need to come to myself and my office to review whatever infraction has taken place and to further collaborate with the school administrators of that building, the parents of that student, and that student to detail a more very high-level specific pathway forward for that student and what's best for them instructionally, while, again, prioritizing the safety and well-being of the school community. So going off of that description, I provided an example here of what it would look like for a school administrator that's kind of operationalizing the code of conduct, and also to help as families and students are seeing the code of conduct, just kind of how to read it, because it can be a little confusing. So the example I used here was teasing or taunting or some sort of engagement with engaging in a verbal confrontation. So first, you'll see on the left the SBAR code. SBAR is an acronym that stands for student behavior that requires an administrative response. So this is something where, based on this infraction, administrator needs to speak with the student. RB7 is a code that's provided by the state. We have different behavior codes that are provided by the state. So this would be a relationship behavior 7. And then I just kind of described what the offenses were. And then you can see a range. Our code of conduct, something that I really value within our code of conduct, is that we do not just group all of the behavior infractions together. We separate them based on the secondary and elementary level, knowing that developmentally our students, while it may look to be a similar behavior at the first grade level, there is some behavior that still needs to be taught between a first grader and a 10th grader. And so we honor that in the leveling of our responses and working with students. So you'll see here that from an elementary level, pre-K through 5, that if this were to take place within school to where an administrator would need to respond, if I'm an elementary school administrator, I'm looking at my level 1 and level 2 responses that would be appropriate for this. And if I am a secondary school administrator and this was taking place, then it could be a range between a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3 based on my knowledge of the of what took place and what is best for the school community. So this is where then all of those details of investigations and conversations with students and past history and any other things that need to factor into the response are taken into account by the school administrator before deciding what that next step will look like. We also have a section where there are mandatory reports to law enforcement. This is where we are fully transparent with our community, with different things within our code of conduct that the state requires us to notify our school resource officers with, or if they're not available, which they always are, then we would work directly with Manassas Park Police Department, but our school resource officers are very alert and attentive to our needs within our school community. So that's kind of how this progresses, and you'll see the different categories within the 25-26 Code of Conduct, but it pretty much all follows that same process. We are, as with everything, continuing to improve and to review our processes. We are required by law to biannually review our code of conduct, and we use several different worksheets and resources provided by VDOE to do that. So there are 2 VDOE, one element of student conduct policy and another student code of conduct elements checklist. That's what we, my team, or as a staff, we look through our code of conduct and see what updates there are to policies, and kind of go through the checklist to make sure that we're meeting the requirements from the state, and then also looking at what types of disciplinary actions have been appropriate from previous years, from current years, to work with administrators, see if there's any changes or lapses that we need to adjust. And then we also provide staff trainings and resources. So all of our new teachers this year received training in Conscious Classroom, which is a wonderful classroom management and just overall intro for our new teachers in how to create safe and welcoming classroom environments conducive for learning. We also have safety care, which we primarily provide to all of our staff, and we don't go through the full safety care training because it has some more specific details to it, but the beginning of safety care is a de-escalation training opportunity. So all of our teachers at the beginning of this year during their in-service week did receive a de-escalation training to provide them with tools and strategies so that if they're starting to notice signs or things of a student maybe not being at their baseline or starting to escalate, to give them resources to be able to work directly with that student to navigate and work through whatever they may be experiencing. And then we have 2 wellness curriculums or SEL curriculums that we use with students. Rethink Ed is at our elementary campus, and then Second Step is at our secondary campus, where we're really providing training and resources to students so that they have skills to just navigate themselves and navigate how they interact with others. So lots of different ways that we try to preventatively provide resources for adults and students on how they can avoid needing to have any interactions with our code of conduct or school administration. 2 updates that I wanted to review with you that both came out this July that impacted our code of conduct. One is cyberbullying, and we can go into even more detail on this when we have our school counselors present during school counseling month, but Virginia Code did change the definition of cyberbullying, so you'll see that our new code of conduct features the new VDOE definition of cyberbullying and includes our same action steps that we would take with bullying. So our 24-hour notification to parents, and then working through the process to decide if we need to do a formal investigation or what supportive measures need to be put in place for the students that are involved. So that change has been updated within our code of conduct and will follow our normal bullying responses. And then secondly, everyone's favorite, cell phones. So with the governor's executive order 33 last year, as you previously mentioned earlier this board meeting, cell phones and student use of cell phones, or restricting student use of cell phones from the beginning first bell to the last bell, has been in place and is now not just an executive order, but it's also Virginia Code. So there's now law that goes along with student cell phone use and smart device possession. And just anecdotally, this is something that we're constantly refining and working towards, making sure that we're providing cell phone free education. I can say at the secondary campuses, having walked through lunches many times and arrivals and dismissals, I can tell you that our lunches are definitely a little bit louder at the secondary campus as students are engaging with each other, talking with each other. We're starting to see a lot more students bringing in games and playing with cards and interacting with each other, which has been very refreshing to see. And we're still working towards our arrival and dismissal procedures to make them as effective and efficient as possible, especially at the high school with our Yonder pouches, led by Mr. Forrest, and then at the middle school with Principal Huntley, having the lockers, working through with the middle school students how to get their cell phones in their lockers and remembering their codes, things like that. It's been a great transition, and we're constantly, the leadership teams of both of those buildings are constantly looking at how we're doing and providing any support to see how we can do it even better. We've gotten a lot of feedback from students, and their voices have been invaluable to really see and hear from their perspective how these changes really change their world. And so we're seeking and looking to continue to include student voices, not just with cell phones, but with just all of our processes, including next year's and future years' developments of code of conducts and things like that. We're brainstorming how we can bring in student voices so that they see it as a representation of them as well. I can also say from reviewing our discipline data that this time last year we had 65 interactions of students with school administrators officially over the topic of cell phones, and this year we've had less than 3. So that's a positive number to note that there's less formal interactions between students and administrators as it relates to cell phones. That the principals, the different procedures that they're putting into place are allowing that to not be a throughout the day distraction and conversation, and that the focus can be on the learning. Finally, just a couple of next steps as it relates to the 26-27 school year code of conduct is just thanking you for your commitment and shaping that, and inviting you to really take a look and review our current code of conduct, and we welcome your feedback and priorities as we prepare for next year, and look to schedule a future session where we can really capture your input and guidance as well as other stakeholder groups. And that is all that I have for you this evening.
Any questions? Go for it.
Sure. No, appreciate the update. The SBAR codes from the state, I assume then that you're reporting back based on those codes. Is that something parents can review? That data is available?
Yes, so that data is available. It's available through the state. Actually, they capture the data and then release it out publicly. So that is accessible to anybody who would like to review it. We also review it internally within the leadership teams, the school administrative teams. At our yearly retreat, we take a look, set goals, and monitor throughout the year, but it's also publicly accessible.
Thank you. Kind of in the last 5 years, last 2 years, we've seen kind of proliferation of student civic engagement, freedom of speech type activity. The kind of the language in here may prohibit and things like that. Can you walk me through kind of where that line is of where we're crossing into kind of disruptive behavior when we're looking at like freedom of speech and that type of thing?
Sure. I would say the biggest line is really, we love hearing from our students. They absolutely have freedom of speech. The only time that it crosses into a matter where it would be, could be considered an infraction of our code of conduct would be when it disrupts the school day. So really it's school operation, when their display of, whatever that might be or whatever they may be expressing, if it crosses that threshold of us of our ability to conduct the school day, whether it's school lunches or whether it's a class discussion that's taking place and the teacher's trying to, continue the lesson along. That's where then it becomes that gray line of whether it is, could be considered an infraction of their behavior.
Kind of indifferent between an individual basis or a large group basis?
I would say that would apply to both. So if there is a display of several students or a student to where the school is not able to operate and function and flow, or to where people, the students are feeling unsafe, or there's some sort of a crossover there, that's when that transition would occur. But if it's peaceful, if it's respectful, if it's not prohibiting any school operation from taking place, then that's certainly perfectly fine.
And then, so in the cell phone regulation, so for my fellow board members, the cell phone policy we presented earlier in this meeting has some language in here about discipline, that no student will be suspended or expelled solely for a violation of that policy. I noticed on the chart that's kind of different from the current approach where those type of things are on the table. Can you talk a little bit about how we would kind of mitigate, I guess, the limiting of the options for those more extreme cases?
It's a great question. So, so the changes in Virginia Code are saying that a student cannot be suspended simply for having their device, whether it's a smartwatch or headphones or their cell phone, that is not an offense that a school administrator could decide to suspend them just based off of that. Where you'll see within our code of conduct, let's say there's other elements to that interaction where maybe a student is, maybe they're, refusing, or maybe there is also something that's critical within that device that connects to something bigger. And, we're trying to work with that student. And, if there's, I guess, just another layer, another element to it is where within our code of conduct that could be considered. But simply for having their device on them, that's not something that we would respond with an out-of-school suspension.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The only question I have is, when would you like the board's reviews / questions submitted back to you guys for kind of incorporation, or at least to address?
No, that's a great question. Yeah.
So Chairman, we will, we'll define a specific time for that for the work session and let you all know. But I think you all have hard copies of the Code of Conduct as well as the digital copies, so feel free to write all over that and make your comments, because it's a large document.
Yes, very. All right. Thank you, Dr. Marbury. All right. So we have no action items on the agenda. So moving on to upcoming meetings, we have an upcoming work session Monday, September 22nd at 6 p.m. In the conference room, 3rd floor. We have a regular school board meeting Monday the 13th, 6 p.m. in board chambers, here where we are on the 2nd floor. And do we have a student representative report?
So Chairman, we don't have a report today, but I do want to take a moment and introduce our student representatives. We're excited to have Berlin returning as our student representative for the senior class, and also excited to welcome Osmar Orellana. I'm gonna get it right. So to welcome our junior representative. Ms. Deloria and I had an opportunity to meet with the two of them this past week and to go through, our student representatives review a code of conduct as well, and an ethic clause. They kind of talk about ethics of being student members of the school board and what their expectations are. So we spent about 30 to 40 minutes with the two of them last week. They sign, and then the board clerk signs, so it's an official document, and we will be excited to welcome them both at our next meetings. So just want to say welcome to them. They showed up right in time.
All right, thank you guys. No, moving on to board member comments. Anyone? You have one? Huh? Yeah, I've got notes too. All right, but if you want to go for it.
We'll see if they're the same.
All right.
One, congratulations, Mr. Koenig, so on your new position. And then I just wanted to share that the joint Gov School Board met for the first meeting last week, and they're off to a great start. We in Manassas Park have 5 students in Gov School, and I believe Dr. Calhoun will be coming to speak to us in November.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay, thank you. So we can get some more information on Gov School. And that's all I had.
The only thing I had was we appointed the Gov School Board, which Dr. Jones will be vice chairing this year, so that next year she can chair.
Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Jones, for stepping up, and that Manassas this year is the jurisdiction that will be leading Gov School. So, if there are no other comments, may I get a motion and a second for adjournment, please?
Yeah, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.